Carlo. Let's set up in the booth here. This is amazing. I've never filled up a stage like this before. It's quite empowering, I'm not going to lie. I am very excited to be here. As Ricardo mentioned, I came from Grand Rapids, Michigan. So I've been doing comedy, like for more than 10 years, so I'm really happy to be out again in public. We went through a little bit of a shutdown for a while, you guys remember, right? So I'm excited to be out again. I hope you guys are too for live entertainment. Let me ask you this real quick, because I know Ricardo mentioned it. He's a pothead, I'm a pothead. Are you in favor, by round of applause, of legalized marijuana here in Michigan? Who's in favor? Oh, that's awesome! I believe we got 100% of the room. You guys have no idea how happy I am to hear that, because I am out. I just get a gram from each of you, I'll be set for about a day and a half. I am a pothead, though, so, I don't really get into conspiracy theories all that often, and I'm not going to really peddle one here. I will say this, though, I think it's a little more than a coincidence that they legalized recreational marijuana in, January of 2020, and then, 2 months later, they're like, all right, everybody stay inside, here's some extra money now. Don't go out anywhere. I'm like, fucking A, sounds good to me, right? They'll deliver that shit? Awesome. So yeah, we're all locked down, had all the weed, my roommate and I, we had all the weed that we could get. So I tried to be productive. I think like most of us during the lockdown, we tried to maybe do something new, pick up a new hobby or whatnot. So I tried to stay productive. As Ricardo mentioned, I'm also in my 40s. As a matter of fact, my birthday is exactly 2 weeks from tomorrow. I'll be turning 46. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. I'd like to tell you it gets better, but no. I'd also like to tell you that sex is better in your 40s, but we'll see. If you guys do the math on that joke, it's sad. So speaking of which, yeah, I'm 46, I'm single, never been married, no kids. Less applause on that one, I get it. It's less than feet, yeah. So here's one of the things that I did during the lockdown is I tried online dating. Real quick, by applause, anybody in here try online dating? Oh wow, some brave souls. Usually it's like silence, right? I'm like, you lying sons of bitches. I get it though, there's a stigma to it, right? I've never tried it until, I was well into my 40s a few years ago. So, I get that there's this whole stigma behind it. But I gotta tell you folks, I'll be the first to admit, could not have been more wrong about it. It is incredibly insightful, these online dating sites, right? I can't tell you the exact one that I use because I don't want anybody to see this set and get, sued or anything. But I'll give you a hint. It rhymes with Match.com. Nobody's gonna see this. It's not. But no, I tried Match.com, right? And folks, I gotta admit, I was completely wrong. I get why so many people are getting into happy relationships now. It's quite simply the technology, right? It's 2024 now, folks, and I was absolutely astounded with the technology they have on there. In fact, I would encourage everyone in this room tomorrow to go on and start a Match.com account. Even if you're in a relationship, go on and do a joint account. Just check it out. Don't do anything. You just got to see the technologies at work. Because I was on there, I went on there, set up my profile, took about an hour, got myself, pictures of myself, rock climbing and, at a bonfire and stuff. And, I love walks on the beach and wine and cooking at home, whatever. So I had my profile all ready to go shopping, or whatever they call it. And so I'm out there and I'm swiping around, right? And after an hour, I finally found this profile of this really attractive woman. She was my age as well. We had a lot in common. And, it's still very intimidating, even online, to make that first. So I'm sitting there, I'm about ready to send her a message, and I'm kind of staring at that blank box. And all of a sudden, folks, like I said, I'm in my 40s. So in the 90s, there was this really helpful program in high school and college called Microsoft Word. Right? Some of you may remember that. And this thing was so awesome that no matter what you were doing, you could be staring at a blank screen, type one letter, and out of nowhere would come this little paperclip guy on his bicycle, right? I think they called him Clippy, right? He'd just roll out of there after one letter. It didn't matter which one you typed. Be like, hey there, John. Looks like you're trying to write a resume. Would you like some help? Yes. How did you know? That's awesome. Can you check my orientation first 2 weeks? Clippy was great, right? He would fill all that shit out for you. Well, folks, believe it or not, he's over at Match.com now. I know, right? Blows your mind. So I'm staring at this blank message box trying to figure out the right thing to say, right? And after a few seconds, here comes Clippy out of nowhere, right? On his little bicycle. He's like, hey there, John. Looks like you're trying to lie to a woman. Would you like some help? I'm like, yes. That would be great. No, see, now she's shaking her head. Now I get it. Now I don't want you to, that's, a joke, obviously, but let me be clear about this, because sometimes the lady, I would never lie to a woman to take advantage of her, or for any reason, really, right? In fact, I'm such a nice guy that I don't like lying in general, in any circumstance, and quite frankly, when I try to lie, like, I just screw it up, and then I end up, like, just speaking truths and nobody needs to know that early on. Like, especially when I meet a woman for the first time that I'm attracted to, right? Like, ma'am, if we were, like, I know I met you earlier because I'm stupid and I thought you were a comic, but, like, if we were, like, to meet in a more, like, hey, I'm hitting on you situation, which I can't do now because I blew it, and you're seeing my set, not a lot of powerful positions to come from. So, but anyway, like, I would just, not only would I not be able to lie to you, I would just start telling you things that you had no business knowing that early on, right? So to have, like, Clippy would be amazing just to pop, because, for example, right before the pandemic, I was in Nashville, Tennessee, right? Doing a show at a really cool club, full bar and everything. And after the show, I'm sitting at the bar, and people are coming over, and high-fiving me and telling me how awesome I was, like I'm sure you guys will do here shortly. So this girl, sure enough, after the bar, I see this really attractive blonde. She's kind of eyeing me, and then, she kind of sees her opportunity, and she kind of stumbles over. She's like, hi, hello, hi, how are you? She's like, I saw your show tonight. Are you really single? I'm like, yes, I am. She's like, oh. It's like, well, my name's Brittany. I'm like, of course it is. That's, yeah. I'm like, well, hey, Brittany. I'm like, well, I'm glad you're single. So, like, you're really single, and if you're really single, I just want to tell you that I think you're really funny, and I think funny men are very sexy. Right? Like, if I didn't have her at that point, now, like, my hair was shorter at the time. We'll get to that later. But she kind of leaned in. I wasn't wearing a hat, and she saw this little leftover scar on my forehead, right, where I had some stitches removed a few days earlier. And so she's already worked out. Then she sees this. Oh, is that a scar on your forehead? Were you in a bar fight? Are you a sexy, dangerous, funny, sexy man? I had her. Like, you guys know where I'm at. Like, no way I can screw this up, right? I'll raise you one. I go, no, Brittany, I didn't get in a bar fight. I stood up off the toilet way too quickly. Like, yeah, just kind of got lightheaded, blacked out, hit my head on the sink on the way down, right? Like, I'm bleeding all over the tile floor. I tell you, if my mom hadn't to come downstairs to do some laundry, I might have died. Like, nice to meet you, Brittany. You have a good night now. Good luck. You guys are a hell of a lot of fun. I got about 7 or 8 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and I want to tell you something. One thing that I love to do at every set, a lot of us comedians like to do, obviously, as you've heard, we like to speak things that are very personal about us, right? Like, really let you get in there and know the real us. So I always like to end my show talking about this because I feel like it's one of the most personal things about me, so I like to share it with folks. I am actually adopted. Yeah, all right, yeah, there you go. I heard a few buttholes pucker up, like, that's okay. Like, you get used to it, but no, I want to let you folks know it's okay. We're going to laugh about it for a few minutes, and quite frankly, after the show, if you want to talk to me. In fact, I want to remind you, the last thing I'll say about the lockdown, I am a pothead, and I try to be productive, so I went ahead during, as Ricardo mentioned, I started a podcast with a couple of my buddies. We've been doing it a couple of years now. What we do is we get really stoned, and then we bring a guest. The guest is there as well, and they get stoned. We all get stoned together, and then we read a fairy tale. Yeah, it's called Blunts Upon a Time. So, if you guys would like a t-shirt, I got t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, all kind, long sleeve, short sleeve, all kinds of cool stuff. Or if you just want to figure out where you can follow it, I got a cool little QR code you can scan. You can check out our website, buy stuff, find all. We have 2 full seasons. Going to start season 3 soon. Ricardo's probably going to be on that. Maybe even Deveron, maybe even Brandon. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what they're willing to do for it later. So guys, like I said, I'm adopted, so if you want to come up afterwards, talk about the podcast, ask any questions, that's fine. No matter what, even if you don't want to buy anything, please come by and say hi to us. We like that. So one of the most common questions I get asked, in fact, about being adopted is people will be like, well, John, when did you find out that you were adopted? And that's a fair question. And the reality is I was only 3 months old when I was adopted, so I don't really remember being told. I just kind of always knew that I was adopted. It was just kind of out there. I have one sibling. I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than me. She's a real child. You get it, right? Like, you follow? Joke. So she obviously knew I was adopted because I just showed up one day when she was 4, right? And looking back on it, I realized that, while we knew that, like you parents know, that's a very heavy subject to give young children, right? So we misused it. So I'd like to just share 3 quick stories before I get out of here. One of my first favorites was when I was like 10 years old and my sister was like 14, right? We lived in Brighton, Michigan. It's Christmas time. Parents took us out to the mall. It was like in the 80s. And at that time, you could leave your kids that age alone for a little while you go off and do some Christmas shopping, right? So they left us alone. And of course, my 14-year-old sister's job as the older sister was to watch out for the well-being and the safety of her younger brother. And of course, as the 10-year-old younger brother, my job was to make her lose her shit. And I was gifted too. Like, it took me 90 seconds, folks. My parents were gone for 90 seconds. My sister had enough. She brought a crowded mall at Christmas to a halt. Just, hey, you knock it off. Right now! Because if you don't, when Mom and Dad get back, I'm going to have them return you like the 3 brothers I had before you. Like, what? Yeah, it was kind of messed up. I definitely outkicked my coverage on that one, right? Like, oh, okay, you got me, right? I was humbled. But even as a humble 10-year-old, I was still smart enough to kind of put that knowledge in my back pocket and be like, okay, that can be used as a weapon. All right, I'm gonna keep that in here now. So fast forward 6 years later, I'm 16 years old, I'm having this knockout argument with my dad, as we always do as teenage boys, right? And I decide it's time to assert my authority. So at one moment in the argument, I remember that I had the nuclear option. I'm like, now is the time! So I puff out my chest and I look at my dad and I go, you know what, Dad? Dad. I don't know why I have to listen to you anyway. You're not even my real father. Yeah, judge the fuck out of me on that one, right? The moment I said it, I experienced the feeling you all just, I was like, no! Right? Like, I couldn't believe it. I've never felt worse in my life. But I've also never been more astonished at my old man, because he didn't even blink. He just looked me dead in the eye and goes, well, of course I know that, son. Why do you think we try so much harder with your older sister, who's our real child? I'm like, God! All right, Daddy, I'll just go to my room then. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, sold. All right. And then my last and favorite one, like I said I would address this. I have longer hair now, but I never ever had long hair in my life before the pandemic. Like, I just grew it out during the pandemic. And it's going to be weird to hear this, but before I grew it out, I was like a very natural redhead, right? Like, my hair is bright red my entire life. You can't really see it in the beard anymore because it's gray now, but I used to, like, it turned blonde up here, so because if in my sideburns, I kind of have like this Mason ginger line now, so like everything to the south is still pretty red, like all the way down to my fur. But from up here, it's just like changed to this weird blonde, and it's all happened naturally. I haven't done anything to it, so I don't know if I'm a trans ginger now or what. It's going there. Yeah, you got it. Takes a minute. But as a little kid, red hair, right? And when you're a little kid with red hair, you stand out. Especially in a family like mine, Houser, they're very German. So my sister and parents had like, dark hair and olive skin and souls. And so I stood out, so people were constantly asking. And at first, my mom was very honest. She's like, oh, he's adopted, so we don't know where he gets his red hair from. Where does he get his red hair from? We don't know. And then they felt awkward, so she felt kind of bad. So she decided, even though she hated to lie to people, she'd come up with this one little white lie. So she had my sister and I out. My sister's like 5 and I was 1. Sure enough, we're at the grocery store. She's got us alone. My dad's at work, And this girl at the checkout counter sees me there in a little stroller. She looks down, sees my red hair, and freaks out. I said, oh my goodness, look at your little boy. He's so cute. He's a little carrot top. So adorable. Where does he get it from? My mom just immediately looked at her, ready to use the lie. She's like, oh, well, he gets it from his father, who's at work right now. Fair enough, right? Worked for about 5 seconds of silence until my 5-year-old sister was standing there all of a sudden, looked up and went, hey, wait a minute, Mommy. You don't even know who his father is. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen a 1-year-old come out of their stroller to chest bump and high-five their 5-year-old sister in a grocery store, but I can tell you one thing for certain. If they had YouTube and cell phone cameras around in 1979, I'd already be famous and you would have paid something to see this show tonight. So that's been my time. Thank you so much. I'm Johnny Houser, folks. Please come and see us in the back.
Jon Houser, everybody.
Thank you. All right, so we're doing an interview, yeah?
Yeah.
Awesome.
That was the fun part. What's the fun part?
Cool.
Very fun. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Yes, very much.
Camera guy, give it up for the camera guy.
Yes, camera. All the staff, give it up for everybody.
Everybody here, everybody
so
Channel
tonight,
1
guys.
Studios,
Giving their free time. So.
All right. So first question, John, is at what age did you realize that you were like funny, like actually, truly funny?
Well, I can tell you the first time I ever did stand-up was in 5th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I kind of knew I was funny, but I had this really great teacher, and one of my best friends, we were both kind of class clowns, so she decided early in the year when it came time to teach us about how elections and politics work, that rather than fight us, she would embrace us and say, we're going to have an election for the class clown. So each one of us had to give like a 5-minute stump speech, which was essentially a stand-up routine. So yeah, I did that at the age of 11. So I kind of already, always knew I was going to be funny, but that was the first chance where they were like, all right, put up or shut up.
That was early on. That's
yeah.
what's up.
She was a great teacher. She really was wonderful.
Yeah, I had that same thing growing up because I was like the class clown. So they gave me time at the end of class to just, okay, Ricardo, just get it out.
Yeah. Well, and a smart teacher knows in that circumstance, better not to fight against them.
Right,
just let them get it out of their system and then try to control the chaos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. When do you think of most of your jokes? Like, I think a lot of my jokes in the shower. So when do most of your jokes come to you?
Yeah, I've certainly had the shower thoughts for sure, without a doubt. It can be any time. I mean, as comedians, we spend a lot of time in our cars on the road, oftentimes by yourself. So I'd say, a lot of that alone time when my mind is just left to wander, certainly on the road. A lot of things will pop into my head, but it can be any time of day whatsoever. There can just be one little funny thought that pops into my head, and then, we jot it down, put it in our notes or whatever, and, then I'll come back. But yeah, I mean, on the toilet, in the shower, I've woken up in the middle of the night, but what was that? Yeah. Right. So yeah, but I would say more often than not, that driving time. You got 8 hours on the road with nothing but your thoughts. You can get a lot put together.
You're one of those good comedians that writes things down. I'm just like, I'm gonna remember this. I don't.
Yeah, well, I say that because they believe me, but yeah, I'd say if I'm doing it 50% of the time, I'm really proud of myself. So yeah, you give me too much credit, sir.
All right, last question. How do you like to structure your set? Some people like to have it be a story. Some people are kind of all over the place. How do you approach that?
Yeah, well, clearly I'm very much like a narrative, anecdotal comedian. I like to tell stories. I don't have a whole lot of one-liners, although, I can throw them in if I need to. But I like to tell a story. I like to kind of weave a narrative for the audience and kind of let you come along. You can make it a little more difficult when you have shorter sets, but you learn how to do that and work that stuff in. But yeah, I kind of like to use my stories and the way I narrate and kind of my energy to just kind of surf them on the energy and the wave that I'm producing. And when the big payoff is going to come, I can kind of get them up there and boom. Right. And then as far as the way I arrange my sets, I basically write down. Like I did 3 bits tonight. So I would write those 3 bits down and say, I'm going to do these 3 bits. And then once I get up here, I say, adoption material. And then I just immediately remember all the jokes that go with that. And there's more to it too, but, I cut it short tonight. But yeah, I love weaving a story and letting people just come along and, be part of the ride, I guess.
All right. Thank you. Give it up for Jon Houser,
thank you guys
everybody.
So much. Keep it going. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Let's keep this train a-rolling. We're bringing our next comedian to the stage. He is a local legend, everyone. Put your hands together for Brandon Bonebreak.